you sit there and you say it and all this stuff, but you got to go against him and you got to have that moment. And I think Umar had it in this first 5-round main event fight for him in the UFC. Just an incredible performance overall.
Yeah, for me, I was really concerned with the fact that going in with Cory Sandhagen is that if the takedowns weren't working, I knew he'd get takedowns. I just wasn't sure to be able to keep Cory down because Cory's so crafty on getting it back up to his feet. Also, the reach and the long limbs of Cory Sandhagen makes a difference. It makes a difference on how you defend takedowns, how much harder it is to get them down, the ability to lift and scoop them up. All those things were going through my mind when I was thinking of ways on how Umar could win this fight. And on the feet, I was more concerned because even though Umar is very crafty with the Taekwondo style kicks and the boxing, it just had me like Cory Sandhagen is a technician. He's someone that can, in round 1 and 2, he spends time figuring you out. Well, rounds 3, 4, and 5 is when he starts really kind of picking you apart. And I was concerned about that because for me, Umar hasn't been given the opportunity to fight anybody in the top 10. The reason being is because the fighters didn't want to fight him. And so now he went from fighting nobody in the top 10 to now fighting the number 2 guy who is so crafty, not just on the feet, but very hard on the, very, very talented on the ground, good jiu-jitsu, and good off of his back as well as good from the top position. Just an overall very well-rounded fighter, Cory Sandhagen is. Very dangerous everywhere. Doesn't get the credit he deserves in terms of his ability to get back to his feet. Doesn't get the credit he deserves for his jiu-jitsu and his grappling. He is phenomenal everywhere. So I had a lot of concerns with this fight for Umar because taking that jump, John, from number 10 to number 2, there's no way, there's not a sample size in there. We use those number 7, number 8, number 4, number 3 to get us to number 2. That's 2 fights that he just jumped. He was like, you know what? I'm just going to bypass all you guys because no one wants to fight me. Well, we saw tonight exactly how focused he is. And you said Javier was telling him something in the corner. What was he telling him? What was Javier telling him in the corner?
You take a look at it, and this is where, there's just levels to everything. There's levels to fighting. There's levels to trainers. There's levels to coaching. And it's knowing when to say, the certain things. And you're watching Khabib is giving him, instructional things about, hey, the hook is working. I want you to do this. And if you just pay attention, you're going to hear Javier Mendez in his ear telling him, you wanted to know what it's like to be a champion. You want to know what you got to go through to be that champion. Well, this is what you got to go through. What you're doing right now, this is what makes you a champion. And he's just telling him that. And that, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to sit there and watch Javier do what he is supposed to do because he's getting all of his information he needs right now from Khabib. He's listening to Khabib, but he's that parrot in the ear that is just giving him, it's a cheerleading, but it's the appropriate time, and it's the appropriate occasion, it's the appropriate placement of what he's doing because he's psyching him up saying, you have been prepared your entire time since you decided to become a fighter. You have been preparing for this goddamn moment right here. This moment where you're up against someone who is absolutely as good as anybody you've ever faced. And you got to continue to pour it on him to show everyone that you're the man, you're the champ. And so you just look and it was like, that's the way to do it.
Like if you're looking, and Javier was with me my whole career, pretty much. I mean, my first, fights and whatever were small shows, but he's been with me since the UFC, my very first UFC stint. And before that also. It's a mental game that he plays with you almost to the point where it's irritating. Not obviously tonight, these are like those comments. Umar's heard them multiple times. You're going to figure out what it's like to be a champion because you're going to have to go through all this and this and this. You're running those 400-yard sprints and those 800-yard sprints. You're running those for a purpose, and the purpose is to become a champion. It got to the point where it was like, for me, it was very irritating. I'm like, look, I'm hearing this. But when you're in there actually doing the work, and you hear him saying it, you're right. Why did I run all those sprints? Why did I hit all those bags? Why was I hitting mitts for 2 hours on time? Why was I doing that damn bike workout, on Thanksgiving night? It's so right
this moment right here.
So I don't come up short tonight. He didn't come up short tonight.
No,
he looked phenomenal.
I'll be honest, as I was watching the fight, the first round goes by, and I did give the first round to Cory Sandhagen based upon kicks. It was an incredibly close round, but I thought that he landed some really effective kicks and just the more effective strikes throughout. He really didn't land anything with his hands. And throughout the fight, it's the one time that I've seen Cory Sandhagen struggle against someone in the stand-up as far as landing with his hands. He did not touch Umar that much. When you're talking about hitting the shoulders and the arms, that's not a significant strike. That's not even a scoring strike. That's a block. And he had a hard time getting to Umar. He did some to the body, but I've never seen Cory struggle with anyone. He's that good in the stand-up. He's that technically sharp, and he struggled. He really had a hard time getting to Umar. And, I had that first round going to Cory, but every round after that, second, third, fourth, and fifth, Umar not only took each round, he took them by greater value with each and every one. So it was a magnificent performance.
I can't remember what round. I thought it was round 3 that I gave to Cory, and I gave rounds 1 and 2 to Umar. I can't remember.
Round 3? Have you lost your fucking cookie?
I'm trying to remember. It was one of the earlier rounds, whether it was round 2 or 3. But I gave round 1 to Umar, and I think I gave round 2 or 3 to Cory. Based on it, like, Cory landed the better shots, but then he only got taken. I think he got taken down once. They popped right back up. I can't remember which round it was, but I had it 3-1 going.
That would have been the second
into
round.
The fifth. Was it the second? Yeah, I had it 3-1. I had it 3-1 going into the fifth, and for Umar. And but like, I'll go back to what you were just saying. Cory is someone in rounds 4 and 5, or rounds 3, 4, and 5 normally when he's fighting guys. Is that he's
usually builds.
He builds. He figures you out. He understands your tells. He understands how you dip. He's figuring you out. He knows exactly where you're going to be at. And then he starts piecing you up, picking you apart. And it felt like in rounds 4 and 5. Now, I know that there was comments saying that possibly Cory had a broken hand. Then he was throwing with the same hand. So that maybe is not it. Then there was something where he basically was saying, like, his foot was swollen with black and blue. Maybe he sprained his ankle on one of the takedowns.
Kick with it a ton.
Yeah, sprained his ankle on one of the takedowns. All of those things being said, though, but in rounds 4 and 5, Umar was landing the better combinations out of the exchanges. So Cory would enter in and land a good shot.
Those were counter exchanges.
So the last thing the judges see is what? Umar landing the bigger shot. Umar landing, that's all they had. Look, he came out of the exchange. Sure, he got hit with the right hand coming in, but then boom, he landed 2 more shots right out of the exchange and then circled out or went to wrestling. It was a very beautiful performance tonight. I obviously have more of an emotional attachment because I've known the kid for so long, but I was really concerned about this fight. Out of all the guys for him to fight, to be honest, this was the one guy, John, you and I talked about. Sure, did I want to see that fight? Yes, but could it have been somebody else?
Scared the hell out of you.
It scared the shit out of me. It scared the shit out of me, man. It really did. But I want to do something else, though. I want to say something else. Cory Sandhagen is... John, he did something that a lot of fighters don't do. He took a fight against a guy that no one wanted.
He gave an opportunity.
And that's so, like, and I said, who was the other fighter that we just went through this with? It was, I know Justin Gaethje fighting Max Holloway coming up from 45. That's an opportunity, being that guy that's fought for the title.
Absolutely it was.
Who was it? Gilbert Burns fought Jack Della Maddalena. Like, there's guys that give these opportunities. And you gotta work those. You gotta love those guys because UFC that they favor those guys. Oh, you're willing to fight someone who's 10 ranks behind you. Okay, we appreciate that. Cory's gonna get a little extra love because of that.
But yeah, you gotta make it clear though. When you're sitting at number 2 and you're fighting a number 10, you can take a look. You earlier in the card. You had Marlon Vera and Deiveson Figueiredo sitting at 6-4 or something like that, 6-5, somewhere in there, and that's where most guys want to be, because if you're that number 2, beating the number 10 does what for you?
Yeah,
not a whole fucking lot. They sit there because now and trust me, before this fight ever started, Cory Sandhagen knew exactly what he was getting into, and he knew how good Umar was. And part of that was, kind of brought up in the broadcast when he was saying he had all these elements to his training camp and all these people he brought in to specifically address some of the things that Umar does, which is, hey, there's a whole lot going on there, man. That's a talented young man. And so how good he is. And the UFC knows how good he is too. But the fans overall, they see a number 2 and a number 10, and then you look at the betting odds as it started, Cory Sandhagen was a huge underdog in that. And you look and you go, my God, and so he's taken a huge chance of losing not only that number of where he's sitting at placement of where he's at in the rankings to possibly get a title shot, where does he go? And if he does lose to the number 10, and how far down does he drop? It's not like, I was number 2 and I lost number 4. Well, you kind of know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You going 2 to 10, you don't. And it's a scary drop, but it takes a lot of balls, and it takes a good person to say, hey, I'm going to push this forward and I'm going to give you your shot. We'll see how good you are.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Give him nothing but credit.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Let me see if I can pull this